Game begin.
Hello and welcome to episode 39 of Spy Colony. I am here with irregular co-hosts Aaron Dix, the Philosopher of Fire.
How's it going, guys?
We have Nick Mayo on the line, hot off of first week of PSS. I just cold off because you lost, but it's okay. We'll rally.
Hey guys, how's it going? Yep.
And Chris, who's always hot even when he's losing, Chris DiBiase.
Hey folks.
Chris Iron Lungs DiBiase, welcome to, I guess we're kind of calling this PSS Weekend Clubhouse.
Love it.
My regular co-host, Michael J., is in Dallas playing the RC. I don't know how I feel about wishing him luck because then he'll just play more contemporary Magic and we'll be, robbed of his delightful presence. But, got to wish my co-host luck. Plus, he thinks that he can make the Pro Tour, so I'm daring him to prove it. We just came off week one of the Premodern Showdown series. Everybody listening to this podcast, I'm sure, knows what that is. But, Wednesdays, twitch.tv/CloudGoatRanger. The first match was James Smits against Michael Phillips. Smits banned... I don't remember. Does anybody remember?
He had banned...
I feel like he banned...
he banned Enchantress.
Enchantress, yeah.
Yep.
And then Phillips banned Oath. And so they both ran Goblins against Goblins.
Yep.
We had on the line DiBiase versus Nick Mayo. DiBiase went for a little bit of a gambit and left Nick Mayo's Elves and Blue-Black Stifle Knot available by banning Terrageddon. And Nick, you banned Goblins, which makes sense because kind of feels like Goblins beats all your decks. Maybe it's not good against Terrageddon, but of course Terrageddon was banned. So we got to see Black-White Control versus Elves, which was super dramatic. McLean Denny versus Mike Harris. Mike Harris banned the blue-white weenie deck, and McLean banned Mike's Stifle Knot or Burn. I think he might have banned. Did he ban Burn? No, he banned Stifle Knot, right? No, he banned Burn. He banned Burn because Mike didn't want to play Stifle Knot against Contamination. Mike was trying to get the Fed Mirror.
Yeah.
So Mike took that with traditional full English breakfast prevailing over Mono Black Contamination, and then finally I banned. I tried to get cute too. As punish, I banned Mike's Goblins, and Flores banned my Landy Hoth deck, and he won it with Burn against my Frantic Storm, and that was just like a fun week one of PSS. So
I gotta say, really dramatic games this weekend. This week. I'm super curious because this is 2 first-time competitors and 3 first-time competitors in a banning environment.
Yeah, right. Because I haven't dealt with pick ban. I guess I'll start with like my logic of that, which I had thought about this before I got into PSS last year. Because once again last year, I was Tom Metelsky's confidant, and he was like, what are 3 good decks? And then, I told him, I was like, well, if I were playing in the PSS, like I would choose 3 decks that all lose to the same thing, not pack any sideboard cards for that thing, and then ban that thing down all the way. So I thought that was particularly genius, but now that I think about it a little bit more, I had not really considered the downside that if people have that thing in their lineup, they know what your ban is going to be, so they can maximize their equity. I've just like been watching so much poker. It's like it caps their range, right? So it makes it so that your opponent has much fewer questions to ask themselves. And so when I got into the situation where, so my lineup is practically just ban Burn because I just didn't put chills in the sideboard of my Grotog deck or anything to Enlightened Tutor for in my Oath deck. So I got down to looking at how things ran out, and I was like, oh shit, like nobody's gonna ban the Storm deck unless like unless I make people scared of it. And so I tried to bait the Burn versus Storm matchup, and then I lost. So nobody's going to ban the Storm deck.
Well, and see, I thought it was genius, the Storm pick. I think it's very much like I tried to do with Fluctuator. You have a lightning rod. Some decks just can't beat it.
Well, this year's PSS, people came to their senses and like stopped submitting like mid-range, basically.
Yeah.
Because mid-range deck, few exceptions.
Time around.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the only other thing that I should have at least considered, like I wasn't confident that Storm beats the Rock, because I've defeated Storm from the Rock side. But like on paper, like I'm pretty sure if you just draw 4 cards and pass the turn, like you'll probably beat the Rock. But I just like didn't know, like I hadn't tried it, right? I did it on video against Black-White Control. So I thought that might come over, but like, you know, Duress Cabal Therapy versus Duress Verdict, and then Pernicious Deed is actually kind of weirdly like not like Pernicious Deed is better than Vindicate, right? Because you can have it up. So I like all the sum total like made me second guess myself, but I probably should have spend more time thinking about it. But also, like I said on the broadcast last week that or this week that I tested with Metelsky, and I just won. Like I won a couple matches versus Burn, and then I just thought I had it. And then
but then you test against Pablo, and
it was horrible. It was like I was like, oh God, what have I done? But then I tested my Grotok. I was like, okay, well maybe Grotok versus Burn isn't as bad as I thought it is without Chill. I'm like, oh, it's bad. And I'm just like. Okay, like God damn it! I was like, but it's okay if I'm gonna throw a win to anybody, it'll be to Flores, because maybe he'll find a way to just lose 4 for the next 6 anyway, so it'll be fine. Although it hurts my breakers, so it actually has to go the other way around. Wait, no, it doesn't hurt my no. Everybody has the same breakers. It doesn't. Yeah. It's better to win for your breakers. You two will learn the glory that is PSS tiebreakers. Last year was breakers. Yeah, last year's was a little awkward. Yeah.
Well, you had it was incredible parity last year. Like last year was everybody was darn near 50-50. Like everybody was lumped around the middle.
Yeah. It was pretty crazy. Like my miss the cut percentage was like, or not percentage, but my miss the cut was like a 4-way parlay, and 3 of the 4 things happened going into the last round, and I was just like, well, that was fun. I'm about to bubble out at 4-3, but luckily Metelsky had me, so that was
doing it for the team.
But yeah, let's go around and talk about our deck selection. I think I talked good enough about my deck selection last week. You guys are welcome to ask me questions about that, or we can just start with Mayo. And
I'm super excited to hear this.
Yeah, so when Flint messaged me asking if I wanted to play PSS and said I needed 3 decks, I said, you know who you're talking to, right? Like, I literally own 1 deck, but sure, I'll play. And so started messaging the rest of the Duress crew, being like, I need decks. Like I literally, I don't want to play Goblins and Elves. Those are the only 2 decks I own, and I didn't want to play both of them. Like two decks that lose the E-Plague. Or not necessarily lose the E-Plague, but lose the Pyroclasm and stuff like that.
Yeah, but then you just ban Sweeper,
you just ban the Pyroclasm, right? Well, I also expected like a bunch of Replenish, and that
interesting
didn't happen at all. So I was like, oh, this is like a nightmare if someone's just like red-green Oath Replenish, and
my lineup contains the card Replenish.
So, well, I mean, you got Landy Hoth, right? Yeah, no one's playing the true Replenish combo, and so. Reach out to everyone, and I really like Brad's Terrageddon deck, and Brad always had it assembled, and I was like, all right, man, just let me play this. I'm gonna get some reps with you guys, like see how this goes, and it feels very strong. So decided to pick that, and then Dreadnought. I was like, I need to play some version of Dreadnought. Like it's not the hardest thing in the pilot. It's not the easiest thing in the pilot, but it's a good deck that can just win sometimes. And I decided to do blue-black literally because I knew if I did anything but blue-black and didn't run Duress, people would be like, oh my god, Duress, they don't run Duress. These guys don't play black. And that's how I came to my decisions.
Because they're sensible. What would you like?
Have you watched back the episode yet and seen the chat surrounding?
Yeah.
I don't want to watch that again, man. I played pretty poorly, especially in game 2.
It's okay.
There's always nerves your first week of the PSS. Everybody has played their worst games of Magic the first week of the PSS. I think that's just par for the course.
I literally was in the semis last year, and I just didn't board in a Chroma Angel of Wrath, and I didn't find out until game 5. So, like, in some ways it could be worse. But I also technically won that game, so I guess like whatever. But you know, like the means by which I made that mistake was also hilarious, because I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna put all the sideboard cards I need for this matchup right in front of my sideboard, because I just like know what I'm gonna play. And yet somehow a Spontaneous Generation was in my deck and not in a Chroma. But did you have any? Well, I mean, I don't, I'm not going to force you to give away all your secrets, but did you take any like synergy into account, any band strategy, any kind of like, it definitely makes sense to just be like, oh, elves and goblins are kind of the same deck, so I don't want to like, allow somebody to isolate that by just banning not elves, not goblins, and then catch that matchup. But was there any like, were there any other decks in contention that you considered and then chose not to play?
I did consider the Rock, honestly, because I have a lot of reps on it. But then, again, like, I played Brad's deck, and I was like, this just kind of feels like the Rock, but better.
Yeah.
Armageddon is just so good versus so many decks, and Meddling Mage is nuts. It's open deck lists, too, so that's pretty helpful in that. And I wanted to have, like, an even spread of, like, like, Elves is a combo deck, but I kind of play it more of a mid-range deck, with Natural Order and Wall of Roots and stuff like that. And then, so I kind of treated the same concept with almost all of the decks, where it's like Dreadnought is a combo deck, but the blue-black version is kind of a control deck with Psychotalk sometimes. Like, it's not mono blue Dreadnought, draw Dreadnought, or lose, right? Yeah. And Terrageddon, same thing. Like, you play turn 3 Terrabor, you play turn 4 Armageddon, like, good game. So it's kind of like how I was treating it, and I wanted to have kind of like what you were saying in the last episode, Lanny, about like having 3 decks that you want to ban, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that you definitely succeeded in that. That's just kind of like the idea. Like, a lot of decks are going to be scared of Armageddon. A lot of decks are obviously going to be scared of Stifle Knight, and a lot of decks are also scared of Survival of the Fittest. Although my prediction is maybe Elves is going to be up quite a bit, because once again, no mid-range decks in this PSS. For like, if like nobody's putting themselves in a spot where like they have like double mid-range, and then you can just force them to play mid-range. Like, everyone's got relatively varied lineups.
Nobody's doing the Mike Arnold last
year.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for Mike Phillips, like, if you ban his goblins, you'll get the Rock or Enchantress, which it like, they're not the same deck, obviously, but they had the same relative speed, which I don't even know is true, because Enchantress kind of kills you on turn 5 or 6. The Rock just never kills you.
Yeah,
right?
But they shut you down so early.
Yeah. No, I mean, like every time I play against Enchantress, I'm just kind of like, I think I got another turn, and then like I don't.
Nope. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And as far as elves go, like, Enchantress versus elves, that's one of the matchups at Tanglewire is just like absolutely disgusting. Like, if you just land that so early, they just sit there and watch you win. They can't do it. They can't lock you out because everything's sorcery speed. They just go cool, pass, like,
Yeah. Okay, so hear me out. You splash Goblin Welder.
Yes.
So you start game 1 as elves, and then game 2.
Your Survival Welder.
Yeah.
Survival Welder.
What do you have anything? So tell me a little bit more about Natural Order. I think we've played matches where you've had Natural Order and matches where you haven't. And then the thing that's been getting me also is that the 2-2 split of Natural Order with the Neshoba in the sideboard. So tell me about your Natural Order journey.
Yeah, so I track all of my Elves games in a spreadsheet. shout out to Chris Tolar for providing that spreadsheet to me when I met him at Eternal Weekend last year. And that lets me kind of see, like, what's my meta look like? Who am I playing against? Like, how many times am I seeing this deck? And Sly, I don't know if it's just my luck with MTGO or what it is, but Sly is literally 12% of my matches this year have been like with Sly, and there's nothing even close to it. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm playing natural order elves. Like, this is what I'm seeing all the time.
That's not random though. Like that actually tracks with the MTGO meta the past couple of. It's really ticked up in like the past 3 months. So I think you're just seeing like where the meta has moved online.
Yeah, and I mean, like, well, even in paper, when I played at the Hartford 1K at SCG Con, I played Sly 3 times in the Swiss out of 5 or 6 rounds. I can't remember how many it was, and then I played it in the top. Like, I played it 4 times that day. You know,
well, format tourists play Burn a lot.
Right, exactly. So in that case, that makes sense, right? So I was running natural order that day as well, and so I don't like it against control, but not a lot of people play Landstill anymore, and not a lot of people are really playing like counterspell permission decks. Like, you know, even Dreadnought, it's not the worst thing in the world. I've literally beaten Dreadnought players just casting natural order for Orangutan. Like, just get them. Yeah, because they use all the counterspells and everything else, so then you're just like, okay. Now it's a 4-mana destroy your Dreadnought, like, you know. So
4 mana and a creature.
Yeah, 4 mana and a creature. I mean, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
saying, like,
squirrel.
You got to solve the problem, right? I mean, it costs the Dreadnought cost them 2 cards too. So.
Right, exactly, and it's just like sometimes you need extra stuff, right? So, and like I cut a Tangle Wire for this whole package, so you're a little bit worse versus Dreadnought. And so, like, when we were going into the PSS, I was kind of hoping Chris would actually play Sly. Like, I have a really, like, despite the fact that Chris has, like, whooped me with Sly a million times this year, like, I think I'm 0-4 versus Chris, like, on Sly. I'm, like, 16-8 versus Sly on Elves right now. Like, I'm doing pretty good. So I was kind of hoping he would play that versus Black-White Control, because I don't have as many reps versus the Black-White Control.
Yeah, I mean, you got me on that on the natural order list, and I thought it was. I mean, I thought it was at least interesting because it's just like you lose game 1, and then like games 2 and 3, you sort of are in the like natural order for Neshoba, but natural order for Neshoba is just so hard to deal with. So
even if they get a Vortex, you know, 7/7 trample versus Vortex is still pretty scary.
It's a race to be sure. I think that, you know, I looked over when I saw your list, I'm like, if there's a list that's built to beat Burn, it's your, you know, you've got the walls, you've got Neshoba. I think I've just got a good lucky streak. I like, whether it's you or Demi, people don't find their natural orders or whatever. I think the only time I've lost to natural order elves was Lanny, because you had a hasty Neshoba one time. But I like the design of the list. I was like, this is not like I could play Burn against this list, but
I remember that match.
Yeah, I was so mad. This is why I've vindicated his mounting. I hate anchors so much. I'm not gonna let that happen. But I think the deck list that you put together is actually, you know, if I was going to recommend, like, well, how do I build elves against Burn? I think you have a lot of the pieces that make it a harder matchup. So kudos to you on that.
Yeah. How do you I mean, it's important, I think, for the listeners. How do you feel about Well Wisher Nick?
It just feels like kind of win more, because it's just like it's gonna die if it doesn't have haste, and if you have haste, you're probably in such a good spot that you should probably just be winning or like close to winning. So I don't know. I've definitely had games where it's pulled me out of bad spots, but it's just like you have to have survival, you have to have anger, you have to have a mountain, you have to cast it, you have to sequence it so that you get the most value out of it. Yeah,
and all your guys are dying too. So by the time you've cast survival, grabbed a anger, pitched the anger, we're at 4 mana. Maybe you have to grab a Yavimaya Granger too, we're at 5.
And meanwhile, while you're doing all this, you're killing your guys, you got hit by a ball lightning, you're at like 12, you know, and they probably have 2 Fire Blasts, because every Sly player somehow has 2 Fire Blasts in their hand every time.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. Sounds right.
I was playing Chris one time, and he was doing Curse Scroll, and he like named Fire Blast, and I was like, "Why is it
2 cards in hand?"
It's always Fire Blast. So,
the Curse Scroll naming Fire Blast with 2 cards in hand from the burn opponent is just like, you don't need any other cards. No, all your other cards could just be garbage. You just need Mountains, Curse Scroll, and 2 Fire Blast, right? That'll deal 20.
I've definitely had the Curse Scroll for Fire Blast, hit a Fire Blast on a 50-50, and my opponent scooped because they thought I had 2 Fire Blasts.
Yeah. Well, your opponents are weak.
Yeah, make him have it.
That's the Dix effect, right? Like people just give up against him before the game's even over. All right, so I also want to talk more about this Terrageddon list. So one of the things that happened here, for those that aren't familiar, this is Treva Terrageddon, Bant Terrageddon, blue, green, white. We no longer have Nimble Mongoose. We no longer have Werebear. We have lots of 4-ups. We've got 4 Meddling Mage, 4 Weathered Wayfarer, 4 Armageddon, 4 Terravore. And then 3 Sylvan libraries, of course, because we're in the Sylvan library era of Premodern. And then it's Brad who's been grinding this deck. Yeah. So what's his last name? Or I don't know.
Brad Stone.
Brad Stone. So this is like, to me, this has been sort of a one pilot deck. Where he's just like top 8s everything in Massachusetts, all of the Swiss tournaments that you've been playing, and people will just be like, oh, well, Terrageddon should be like in tier 2 or tier, I don't think anyone says it should be in tier 1, but who knows?
There was a time.
Back in the days.
No, I mean, a couple of years ago, the PSS, that was one of the most played decks, PSS 3 or 4. Like, that was the deck to beat.
Yeah. Well, not 4, because 4 is the one that you were in, and nobody had Terrageddon in 4. You've been in a few, yeah.
Maybe it was in 5.
Okay, regardless, Spy Colony does not recognize pre-2020, 2021, the one-ish Premodern anyway, so, or 2022. Pre-2022 Premodern Minus will not exist to the Spike Colony. It's before the Spikes had colonized Premodern, so
I just think it's
we look at this time as when the indigenous people of Premodern, were just like hanging out in their this is such a bad analogy.
Just stop. This is like,
I was just like, and then we brought the smallpox blankets, and okay.
Nope, just stop.
Spy Colony would like to point out that we support neither genocide nor colonialism. It should go without saying, but important to state. So back when Terrageddon ruled the uncivilized shores of Premodern, so Terrageddon's back. I have at least tried this deck a little bit, and then of course Demi won the most recent Premodern challenge with it. And I think the coolest thing that happened that I saw Demi do, because like one of the things that always got me about the Terrageddon crew, the Terrageddon group, is they're like, okay, here's what's going to happen. Like, I'm going to have my 1/1 in play for the entire game, and I'm just going to wasteland all your lands. And I was just like, that sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, every deck in the, like if I'm going to play a 1/1 that survives, like, why not Goblin Lackey? But enter the combo matchup, which is the matchup that Terrageddon struggles with. And all of a sudden, this one looks really scary. But there's also something like a missing link for me, because Terrageddon has always had Weathered Wayfarer Wasteland. And Terrageddon has still always felt like the green-white Terrageddon deck. It's never impressed upon me the idea that it beat combo. Like, maybe it beat certain kinds of combo, but like, I was playing Replenish against Terrageddon. Jeff Ferris, a local here, plays a lot of Terrageddon. I would beat him with Replenish. I would beat him with Stifle Knot until he just like loaded up his sideboard with extra cards. So do you have any insight into kind of like Terrageddon's like evolution, or what Brad's progression is within your kind of local meta, and how he kind of like fixed the deck, or if it's just a meta pick and it's just like, it's good when it's good?
I just think it really rewards having a lot of experience in Premodern. Like Meddling Mage in that deck is absolutely cracked. Gemstone Mine is so helpful for fixing your mana, and it also just combos so well with Wayfarer, Terrabor. You can just instantly pump your guy. You can get under your lands, get a Wayfarer activation. And I just think like, I think everyone wants Nimble Mongoose to be good.
Yeah.
But it's just not, right? Like you said, it's like I'm gonna play this thing, and then I'm gonna get 7 cards, and then I'm gonna have a 3/3, and it's like,
oh yeah, the Nimble Mongoose Werebear deck never hits threshold. Just like it just didn't. Like,
or if it did, it's like by that point, your 3/3 might as well have cost like 4 or 5 mana because
just, you could have cast Call of Herd,
right. You could have cast Call of the Herd, or you could have just cast like better cards. So that's kind of the idea here, right? Like just play Call of the Herd. It's really really good. Just play Meddling Mage. It's the best creature in the format. And then of course the Armageddon effects mixed with Meddling Mage gives you game against combo. You have Call of the Herd for aggro, things like Zern Orb inside for Sly. Straight up, like sometimes some of the strategy against Sly is just like plow your own Terrabor and just good game, and it's just got a lot of game against everything now with this like package instead of including things like Werebear and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think this sideboard is also one of the most sort of elegantly designed sideboards that I've seen. 2 Cataclysm, 2 Curse Scroll, 2 Fire Ice, 2 Hydroblast, 1 Naturalize, 2 Ray of Revelation, 2 Tormod's Crypt, and 2 Zern Orb. Like, one of the things that I've talked about a lot on this podcast is that like some sideboard cards look like some like sideboard cards are a lot of them can be too narrow, and so you don't want to like, especially in a mid-range deck where you don't have control over your draws, like you don't want to over-index on like Curse Totem, right? You can't like just play 4 Curse Totem because you're that scared of elves, because like Curse Totem doesn't affect nearly any other deck with the exception of Devourer, which if we're going to talk about metagame spread, there it's population of 1. And then same thing goes for like something like Cataclysm. I think the Fire Ice is super interesting. Of course, this deck doesn't really want to run Pyroclasm. It doesn't really want to run a lot of red sideboard cards, period, because we're looking at 10 red sources or so. Same thing with Hydroblast. Like Hydroblast is fine against burn, but it's not like the best. It's not as good as Zern Orb, but you still need to bring in cards, right? So this 2/2/2 structure, I was like looking at it, I was like, this is sweet. Like you're bringing in 6 cards for every matchup. You're bringing in like 2 aces and then two jacks and then a couple 10s, right? So like for example, against burn, you're pretty happy to bring in. You're stoked to bring in 2 Zern Orb. You're pretty happy with 2 Fire Ice, and then you've got also two Hydroblast. So it's like those are 6 cards that if you draw them in a combination of 1 or probably 2. You're going to turn the matchup around. But it's not like you're running 4 chill where it's like, okay, I can't bring these cards in. Like, I wouldn't bring in Zern Orb in a lot of other matchups. Like I've seen Fran kind of do it against Goblins, which feels a little bit thin to me, but by all means. But Fire Ice is just like you're going to bring that in versus Elves. So then you're bringing in against Elves, you're bringing in like Fire Ice, Curse Totem, and Cataclysm. And then you just like go down the matchup list and you kind of always have 5 or 6 or maybe 7 cards that you can board in. So that's just like great deck building, especially for mid-range, because I think people build really weird sideboards sometimes where they're like deck with no card selection. They'll just be like, I'm going to bring in 2 Curse Totems. And I'm just like, and then what? like right. You're just not going to draw them. You already lost game 1, right? So it's like you're just going to try to draw a Curse Totem in your opening 9 like for 2 games in a row. It's just like, come on. Like, so right. There's a lot of sideboard density here. So yeah, I'm a believer now. I mean, you've got Call of the Herd too. Like, half the metagame can't beat that card.
Well, and so Fire and Ice is actually the latest development. Those used to be Last Breath for Meddling Mage matchups.
Fire is so much better as a sideboard card against Meddling Mage.
So yeah, I think it was partially inspired because Brad used to run E-Plagues, and we kind of like concluded that he didn't want to put like 2, like you said, we got a nice spread of 2/2/2 here. He didn't want to do 3 or 4 E-Plagues just for Goblins and Elves, especially when Elves is a pretty small meta percentage. Like, yeah, he sees me all the time, but aside from that, like, he doesn't really play against elves. So we're like, well, Fire and Ice is pretty sweet, and like it's almost never dead. Like worst case, you're just cycling it, right? And so it's pretty sweet so far. I've played it against goblins. I've played it against a couple other matchups. Played against Sly, and it feels great.
Yeah, I'm definitely stoked on the deck. You know, and maybe it will become not a one pilot deck after this PSS and after
yeah, we'll see
Damien's stuff. Blue Black Stifle Knot. I guess I don't have. I guess I do have one question to ask, which is just like there are 6 cantrips in this deck. So
right.
Tell me about how we arrived at 2 Impulse, 4 Portent. I'm glad there's 0 ops. So you know. I'm glad somebody listens to the Spike Colony podcast, but tell me more about this. I mean, yeah, your background of the deck, what the reps have been like, how we arrived at some of these numbers.
So I wanted to play as a more consistent version of the deck because I figured people coming into PSS are going to be like, okay, I need a plan for Dreadnought. Like you know, people there's going to be some amount of people that are playing it. So I want to make it a little more consistent, like a control deck with Dreadnought versus a Dreadnought deck with control. That makes sense.
Fair enough. But I mean, I guess like the thing that goes into that is just that, like, to me, the control, like Impulse is a control card, whereas Daze is like a Dreadnought card, right?
Yeah. No, I mean it's fair. It's just like I don't know. I kind of assumed there'd be some number of goblins and stuff, and I just wanted to make sure that I had a lot of like removal or options for removal, and you know, extra Psychotog, stuff like that.
Yeah. 3 Psychotog is heavy. I mean, what do you think, Aaron? How would you build Blue Black Stifle Knot after your exciting Super Gauntlet win? With like you had 4 Limb Duels Vault, right? Or like 3? You had a lot.
3, yeah. It was too many Limb Duels Vaults. I think more early cantrips is for sure the way to go.
Did you have 4 Portent in your list though?
No.
I've literally murder you over that. That's just like unacceptable behavior.
I know. No, the honestly, I put that deck together as a joke. So
right, because that was because your Gauntlet pick was Psychotog, not Dread.
Yeah. So it was trolling the group chat, and then it just became like, oh, I think this is real. I'm going with it. So no, I think your list is super, super sweet, Nick. I like it. Looks like what I want to play there.
Yeah, I like the sideboard too. 4 Null, 4 Engineered Plague, 3 Hydroblast, 1 Smother, 2 Sabo's Web, 1 Vendetta. I'd play Upheaval instead of Sabo's Web. Upheaval might not work. But,
no.
Okay. Yeah, and like I mentioned this on the broadcast, but like I love this lineup because it's like all really good not tier 1 decks. I mean, Blue Black Stifle Knot is like practically a tier 1. Like, I will say this: I talk so much shit on Mono Blue Stifle Knot. Mono Blue Stifle Knot is still basically a tier 1 deck. Like,
so here's the thing about Blue Black is if you wind up in the mirror, Blue Black has tools in the mirror that no other Stifle Knot deck has. It's really great there. And then you've got, black sideboard cards, which are awesome.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite Mirror Breaker is 12-13 Psychotog. Like, that's just personally my favorite way to address the mirror. Yep. They're just like, haha, I got you. Just like, okay, I'll block. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but I will block with my 12-13.
Yeah. I really enjoyed attacking for 12 with a Psychotog, and they're like, cool, I guess you're not doing anything else with that Psychotog. You just used all the resources. You're like, sacrifice it to a Phyrexian Dreadnought.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah. The dream.
I've never even thought of that. That's so good. That might be the first time somebody sacrificed 12 power. Like, not Shallow Grave, my Dreadnought sacrificing my Dreadnought notwithstanding. That might be the first time somebody sacrificed 12 power to a
Because they keep letting
Dreadnought.
the Psychotog in if it's not lethal, and then you could just be like, cool.
Yeah, now I got a 12-12. Although I will mention that the next coolest thing that you can do to level the 12-13 Psychotog, and I have done this, is you attack with your Dreadnought, they block with the Psychotog, they make it a 12-13, and then you Vision Charm your Dreadnought. That's kind of an easy trump. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I wonder if we will see any Dreadnought mirrors, because there are 3 Dreadnought decks, 3.
There's 1 blue-white and 2 blue-black.
2 blue-blacks, yeah. So we might see the mirror. I hadn't thought too much about the mirror. I still, yeah. Psychotalk does kind of do more than Meddling Mage. Mainly that Meddling Mage doesn't do anything if Psychotalk is on the battlefield, and then. Sure, you don't have Swords of Plowshares, but Swords of Plowshares and the Dreadnought Mirror is actually kind of funny, because if the game's about tempo, then you give your opponent 12 life, and that's just worse than spending an extra mana, depending on the situation. Yep. I'd love to see that play out. I don't think we will get the benefit of seeing that unless something very interesting happens the week that you play against Mike Harris. But yeah, I guess I won't spoil your band. Well, actually, what I love to do. This will be the policy for the podcast, is that we're not going to force Nick to say his ban strategy, but what we will do is say what we would do if we were Nick.
Yeah, there we go.
So, but my level 1 is just ban everybody's deck that they're good at, which is against the spirit of the PSS, because the whole point was everybody wants to see Mike Harris playing Feb, and it's just yeah, but if you see Mike Harris playing Feb, then that means I'm going to lose. I'll handshake deal. Mike doesn't I'll ban not Feb, and then Mike bans not Grotog, and we can play Feb versus Grotog. But otherwise,
the finals, the time I won, we actually had a handshake deal for the finals. It's dude, all of these are super polarized. How about we just pick what pairings are going to wind up with each other?
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, I like that.
We love one for the show.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wanted to see it was Robin's Wizards versus my whatever. It's we're look, here's matchups that make sense that we actually want to play, and you don't have any of the this can't beat that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, rooting for a Stifle Not Mirror. Stifle Not Mirror is actually one of the best matchups in Premodern, and it's ridiculously hard, and just super the game flow is super interesting, and the strategy is super interesting.
I think there's a lot of really cool mirror matchups in Premodern.
Goblin's Mirror is sick.
Awesome.
Goblin's Mirror is sick. El's Mirror is hilarious.
Elf Mirror is the worst match in Premodern.
It's pretty bad. It's I've got my Priest of Titania.
Who's got the Titania?
Yeah.
Game 1 is who's got the Massacre and Priest, and games 2 and 3 is do you have Goblin Sharpshooter or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally agree. All right, Chris, let's hear it. Burn.
Sure.
Goblins. I know I downloaded you on last week's Spy Colony, but you can tell us what it is.
Yeah. So my decks. So much like Nick, when I got the invite from Flint, I'm this is really cool. But again, at that point, I don't even think I had completely finished building Paper Burn. I just finished building Paper Burn, and in the process expending between that and LobsterCon my designated mentally prepared Magic budget for the year. I'm I got 2 kids and a dog in an expensive town. I am very parsimonious when it comes to expenditures. So I was yes, I'm not going to say no. So my first thought was, okay, well, what do I own? Okay, I own Burn. I'm not going to not play Burn. And I have 75% of the rock, so that's a starting point. So then it's okay.
Another rock close call. I'm loving
it. Was
this.
I almost ended up with Flores's 3 decks.
That's actually hilarious.
It was real close so I owned enough of the rock where really the cost of black-white with the cheapest versions and finishing the rock was identical. And so I had a lot of conversation which direction to go, and Pablo and Demi and Stan were you have to play black-white, do not play the rock. It's just
nice.
Yeah, Pablo
saved you.
Pablo and Demi are like, all of Spain and Argentina agree this is a bad deck. Do not play the rock.
All of Spanish, like the entire Hispanic.
Muy mal.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, like, and I toyed a little bit with black white, and like I like the way this feels. So then the question was like, well, how do I get like a third deck? Because like I can spend $50 on black white, like that's not a big deal. That's really, I actually enjoy the deck, and I've got some friends who are trying to get into Premodern, so like having an extra deck that's not that expensive is reasonable. And I bought the cards for both. Like I was like, I'm just gonna get the both, and like we'll figure it out. And then I have a former colleague and friend who lives not too far from here, so I'm in Connecticut. He's on Long Island, and I knew he had. I didn't even know he played Premodern until I saw him like randomly in the Facebook Premodern group. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And we started chatting. And it's like, well, I have a couple of decks. And of them, Goblins, I think, had the most raw power. And it was, so, and Aaron was very kind to say, like, I can ship you whatever. But like, I feel very uncomfortable. Like, I get sweaty about like a 5-cent uncommon not arriving from TCG Player on the day it's expected to. And I was like, I just can't have people like ship like expensive stuff. And so like literally, I mean, this is kind of silly, but like my parents live 10 minutes from my friend. His name is Luke Fetter. Shout out to him for lending me the deck. They were coming up to visit their grandkids, and I said, could you swing by his house and pick up the deck and hand it off and bring it up? Because I was like, and his is a nice version. Like mine would be like all like Secret Lair, Goblin Lackey, and shit. If I had to buy it myself. So
just wait till you see Flores'
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that is kind of where I ended. I've been toying with some other decks. So like in terms of decks I've had results with in the past, when I first started playing Premodern, I was exclusively on Angry Hermit for a while, and I did fine with that.
I remember that time.
I jumped in and was like, okay, yeah, this is a pretty sweet deck. I think
that deck costs like $1,000 though. So.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's the problem, right? Or like I really enjoyed playing. This is a second kind of part of my thinking was I really enjoyed Fran's Allurin build. I also really like Allurin. I've always enjoyed that deck. But the problem I found when I played it in a league is like I'm just not good enough with survival yet. Like I don't typically play survival decks, and so I was finding myself like losing matches where after the match, like, oh, there was the line and I missed the line. So like I want to keep working at that because I am trying to like broaden what I can do. But yeah,
I don't know a single survival of the fittest player that doesn't feel that way. Even if
I was gonna say that you never get over that.
Yeah.
So that definitely didn't happen last week with PSS.
No, definitely
didn't happen to me.
So that's part of. So like I really think this deck has got legs, but I don't feel nearly comfortable enough playing it. Same thing with like something like Stifle Knot. Like even if I could have borrowed it, like I don't play Gush decks. I don't have enough reps with Gush decks to feel like I could play this well. So that was part of it.
The PSA that I'd just like to slide in here is just don't cast Gush on your opponent's end step.
Yeah.
Just like that, like Menendian's book should have been one line.
Of it.
Yeah. Like understanding Gush concept. It's like open 100-point type. Don't cast Gush on your opponent's end step. Like I actually think that might be true. Like 100% of the time. Or at least 99.9.
Yeah.
But
asking Menendian to only write one line is like asking Flores to only write one line. So I don't think it's happening. So that was part of it. Mog Fanatic is the best. Mog Fanatic and Mountain is the best engine in Premodern. And so I figure with Goblin. So no, but to get back to your point earlier, Lanny, like part of my thinking here was, well, I think it's unlikely that someone's coming in with 2 decks that are loaded up with anti-red hate. And so like worst case scenario, if I want to play red, I can play red, right? Just ban whatever doesn't. Because here's the deal, right?
I should have brought 2 decks with 8 blasts. That's what I should have done. I shouldn't have done ban burn. I should have just been done like isolate red.
Yeah,
and then I would have gotten both you and Flores in my 8 Hydra blasts.
There you go. So I think that was a big part of my thing because like I don't want to play burn into Stifle Knot or like Enchantress, but the truth is like there's no matchup with burn where I feel like I can't find at least maximum value. So if I can like have the opportunity to play it, I'll be happy with the opportunity to play it. Now in the calculus for Nick's match, I was really trying to 4D chess him into black white versus Stifle Knot, in part because the only matchup I liked against Terrageddon was the burn matchup. I wasn't going to play black-white into 4 Armageddon and 2 Cataclysm post-board. And I felt iffy on Goblins versus that deck. I talked with Xavier Paradigm Levies, who plays a ton of Terrageddon. He's like, it's not a good matchup for Goblins. It's just not. It's not as good as you would think it would be on paper. And my testing against some other people, it wasn't playing out as well as I wanted to. And so it's like, well, if he doesn't ban burn, I'm fine. If I ban, Stifle Knot, but if he bans burn, I'm stuck with matches that I'm not like thrilled with, right? Because he can just play he's not going to play elves into goblins, and he can just play Terrageddon, and then I'm kind of up a creek. So I didn't get the matchup I was looking for, but Demi felt confident that black-white has slight edge over elves over 3 games, and I trust him on elves. Lucky enough to know between Nick and Demi and a few other people, some really strong elves players, and I took his advice seriously. I'm also hoping to avoid mirror match. Like, I'll play the burn mirror match, but I really want to try to avoid mirror matches as much as possible, simply because most of my reps are with burn, right? And like, there's no world in which I want to play like a Stifle Knot mirror match.
Yeah. Mirror matches are so skill testing because it's completely comes down to your strategic ability, and once you're in that world, like, all bets are off. Like, I don't like playing mirror matches. Like, I don't like playing mirror matches on anything that I don't have, like, I think like a immensely superior like strategic knowledge. Like, I played my first Goblins mirror match. It might not have been my first, but like one of my first Goblins mirror matches on video, and I was just like, oh, it looks like I'm winning. And then my opponent just like had War Chief first. Like, I was like, I ringleadered for like 1,000 Goblins, and then my opponent had War Chief, and then I was just behind for the rest of the game, and I was just like, oh well, I guess I don't understand this matchup at all. But same things goes. Like, I mean, like, you almost don't think about it, right? Because when you're playing other decks against other decks, your like strategy makes a lot of sense. You're like, I'm going to sideboard these cards, I'm going to like do this card, and then in mirrors, all of a sudden you're just like, oh, like this matchup actually completely revolves around like me being able to like hard cast Gush first, or Priest of Titanium, whatever nonsense, like War Chief first, or like, actually I want to take the draw because it's like this super. Like, the all of our cards trade, so just being on the draw is going to matter the most. I can't imagine the Storm mirror where you're just like sitting there and nobody wants to do anything because they'll just brain freeze you in response.
I'm sort of on the record for any deck selection process being like, I never want to be the second best player of something in a room.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know that I have all of the reps. I think it was Anton and I trying to decide what I should play for Euros. He's like, you should play elves. You're good on elves. I'm like,
Europeans just freaking love elves. Well, I guess Anton obviously loves elves.
Obviously.
But Europeans love elves.
But you're going to a tournament with Pablo and Frank and like, no, I'm going to get into a mirror match. I don't want to be the second best player in a room on the deck.
I agree with you 100%. So that was, I go in acknowledging like a lot of my experiences is I've got a lot of eggs in a single basket here, but that was also partly like why I was like, I'm gonna bring black-white because I want to show that I can do something other than burn. Like, I want to show that I can do more than cast Lightning Bolt. I have decks that I obviously prefer that deck. That deck gives me a lot of joy to play, but I've been joking, like, people think, oh, maybe he's a one-trick pony, and I am, but that trick is bitterness and resentment, and a giant fucking chip on my shoulder. That's the trick, right?
I like it.
So, but I was ultimately happy with my decks. Like, I really do enjoy playing Goblins. I've been putting in a ton of reps with that and Black-White on MTGO because my semester's over and my kids are still in school. And so, like, I have this, like, golden period where I can just kind of grind matches just to get familiar with the decks and the lines. And one thing that's nice about, like, the MTGO community is, like, I know all these people who know these decks. Like, okay, talk me through this line. Like, why was this a mistake? How do you handle this situation? What are your sideboarding thoughts? And that's been a huge resource.
A real scholar of Premodern over here.
Well, it's funny. In my head, I'm thinking like, "Oh, who are you? Oh, I play Premodern Burn. Oh, you're Aaron Dix. No, I'm the other guy, the one with the PhD. Oh, Flint. No, the other one. Oh, Rich Shea. No, the third one. Yeah, just the down the line. So
I mean,
that's where I'm at.
it's a good group to be a part of. And you are the CEO of the Burn Discord, so
Definitely.
you've got that going for you. I mean, Burn's a sweet deck. Way too many lava darts in here, but it's cool.
Nope, you're wrong.
How'd Lava Dart work out this week? Was it good?
Yeah.
Did I miss it?
There's 4 Lava Dart and 3 Overload in this sideboard. You want the 4th Overload? You're never gonna beat. Like, mark my words. Dix, let's take it. I'm book it. What odds do you want that Chris beats Dreadnought this time? Just what odds do you want to take? 4 Lava Darts.
Hold on. I'd be in Dreadnought with less than. I'd be in Dreadnought with 3 Overloads.
That's because you draw them. Why not draw 2 copies?
Yeah. I got 3 copies. 3 copies is enough. I'm good. I'm fine. I've got a good game plan. I know. No, look.
Sacrificing a mountain is atrocious. It's bad in the I just
Listen,
it's at best it's a 2 for 2. That's what just kills me. It's just I've got this sideboard card. It's oh, how sick is your sideboard card? It's well, if I draw an extra mountain for some reason, I get to turn that mountain to a card if I'm lucky. It's oh yeah, just give it to me. This is the best fucking card I've ever heard.
I love it, man. Look, here's the way I think it. I love Lava Dart. I like the card. I think it's incredibly versatile, and I will concede I like the card in a lot of matchups more than other people like the card in matchups. I really like Lava Dart versus Goblins, and I think other people are more kind of lukewarm on it, but it's done work for me in the past, and so I also anticipated more copies of Burn across players in the PSS, and I thought that there was a higher likelihood of running into the mirror, and so I wanted access to it. I thought there might be more.
I'm going to say this about Lava Dart in the mirror. Lava Dart in the mirror is obviously good, but it's only good because Jackal Pup is super bad, and then
you're wrong. You're just wrong. You're wrong.
I hate this because it's just it's like a net loss for
it's
Burn.
Okay, Lanny.
It's a net loss for Burn for everyone. Everyone, all the Burn players are just I gotta play 4 Lava Dart because
I can change your thinking on Lava Dart.
Go for it, Aaron. Tag in.
So Lava Dart, don't think of it as doing 1 damage. Think of it as remove target creature from the battlefield. Just its removal. You are if they have one toughness creatures, it's just flat out removal. Now think of a Swords to Plowshares on a Ball Lightning and how good that is, even though it gives them life. Now what if it didn't give them life? Now what if you could flash it back for the cost of a land? Would you flash back a Swords to Plowshares for the cost of a land in a lot of games?
I understand. Dix, I understand. Okay, I understand Lava Dart, and
you're thinking about it wrong. You're thinking
no. This is
you need to think about it as removal.
No. I don't. I actually completely agree with the ceiling on Lava Dart. Right, the idea, the concept, what you're describing is hilarious to me on rate, because to me, I'm listening to this and I'm just kind of well. If you're in the Burn mirror, you might get flooded, right? And if you get flooded and you have nothing to do with your extra mountains, Lava Dart, it smooths. It's to me, Lava Dart is playing Opt in Burn, right? You just get a bottom of land and get a card instead. And I'm actually totally on that sort of concept on rate, and the idea that that you would want to not flood out and Burn. You would want to be able, you would want your lands to be more efficient resources. But that's the problem to me, which is the ceiling is you trade 1 card for 1 card. Removal. I get it. Mog Fanatic is the most everyone in this call agrees that Mog Fanatic is the best card in the Burn mirror, right? So the best thing that Lava Dart does is it kills Mog Fanatic, right? And then obviously you can tap out and whatever. But on rate, if we just remove, if we just kind of remove our Lava Dart colored glasses, and we're just well, what does this card do? It just on the front end, it kills a mechanic. On the back end, if we have too many mountains, we get to exchange a mountain for a piece of material from our opponent. And that's good. Like, don't get me wrong. That's not good.
Sorry, I tuned out there. I was watching the replay of your match with Mike, and I just got...
We can all agree that you should merchant scroll for snap and not throw the game away. And then secondly, that it is hysterically great against exactly Mono Blue Storm, a matchup that if we did get to play 2 sideboard games, I almost assuredly would have lost anyways. Because I lost on the play in the sideboard game. It's just like, you can't lose on the play. It's just like, but and don't get me wrong, like I'm with you on the just kind of like, okay, well, you got to board out your pups and you got to like, what's the best card that you can play? It's like, well, Lava Dart's kind of a better card than like a bunch of other cards, because it's good against elves, right? Because you're like, I mean, I don't know. We can talk about that. I don't want to hijack this into like just a burn conversation. I just wanted to air my grievances. Just like 4 cards. There's so many Lava Darts.
Yeah,
4.
I run like Chris. The whole reason I even ran elves, I was like, okay, well, I'm really comfortable in this version of elves versus Sly, and he's got 4 Lava Darts. There's no way he doesn't pick Sly here. Yeah. But I was like comfortable going either black-white control or Sly. So I was like, if you didn't pick that versus elves, then what are you picking it for? Right?
Because I thought you would juke to 12-12, right? So this was to get this back to are we done talking about how wrong Lanny is about Lava Dart? Can we move this forward?
Yeah.
Okay, great, wonderful. So my thinking here was, it's sort of prisoner's dilemma, right? So I felt very good with my ceiling on burn, but like if he sees what I'm doing here, right, and he picks Stifle Knot, I don't really, of all of these Stifle Knot color pairings, I think blue-black is my, if not my least favorite, it's my second least favorite pairing, because Todd gives you another thing that you kind of have to deal with. Your only answers to it are the same answers that you would want to be using to shut down Stifle Knot.
You only have 3 overloads.
Well, the overload, I don't care. Whatever, I can deal with the overloads. It's not a problem. Lenny, I can win the match with 3 overloads. It's okay. I'm secure enough.
It's like the difference between you and me, right? I have to have 4 overloads, but
that's fine.
Chris is so efficient with his resources.
I am.
He can win with 3.
So my thinking was, I felt like I had a low floor, high ceiling if I picked burn. I felt more even across the board with black-white, and so I figured I would just sort of, especially for week 1, I'm like, let's just go with this, and we'll see what he ends up doing. So that was kind of my thinking there. It's like, okay, if I have burn, he's going to say, well, he has to play burn. He's got all the Lava Darts. But then if he knows that I think it's Princess Bride, right?
Well, I was doing that as soon as I got the ban, I was like, all right, he banned Target, and now he's gonna do this. He wants me to
Yep. Dude, I've got grids upon grids upon grids over here. Like,
it's very interesting, because to me, on Chris, on your side, I think it's like, I guess I don't know. It's very interesting, the logic that drives certain PSS competitors, because like to me, I'm just like, despite what happened this week, due to an error in understanding the matchups, like I knew, so I'm only talking about my matches versus Mike. So Mike, my level 1 was like pretty, like Mike's level 1 is very simple, because like if I ban burn, neither of his decks can beat my Oath Replenish deck. So like I knew Mike was gonna ban Oath Replenish. We were like just joking about it. He's just like, oh well, like, can we just like talk about our ban so I know like what deck I need to sleeve up? And I was just like, it's very obvious that you're going to ban Oath and I'm going to ban burn. So like if I was in that position, I knew what was going to happen was that I was going to play Grotog against the Rock, because I wouldn't want to play my Storm deck against Mike's Goblins deck, and Mike wouldn't want to play his Goblins deck against my Grotog deck. But what at least interests me is that this black-white control against Stifle Knot matchup is like not not a given. And this Elves versus Burn is kind of like not a given. So it's like what ended up happening is like I think you guys only had one possible polarized draw, which favors Nick in the form of Stifle Knot versus Burn.
Yeah.
So if I were to run out, like, one, I would have had the same bans on both sides, but I thought you would just be 100% on black-white control, and then Nick would just choose whatever deck he thinks is better against black-white control.
That was kind of my thinking, but you know, we played out the way that it did.
But they both felt kind of 50-50-ish with black-white control. Like, you're just setting up like this is just going to be a Magic match, and we're going in.
Yeah, and a true 50-50, unlike if he had the Rock in his lineup.
Yes.
In which case it would have been maybe 45-55.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That's sweet. I guess next week I got you, Chris.
Yep.
Basically, it's going to feel like deja vu for me, except for this time I probably ban Burn, considering that my Storm deck doesn't evidently beat Burn. Especially that you're going to board in 4 Lava Darts. Like, what am I supposed to do? He's going to sacrifice all his mountains after I storm him out.
Yep. You just got to beat him before he has 4 mountains in play.
I was thinking, like, it would be too angle shooty to not put, you know, like game, because Mike was like, well, you don't have them in game one. You know, Milos doesn't have one main deck, and he's like, what would you have done? I'm like, would it be too angle shooty to be like, can you beat Lava Dart?
Yeah. Exactly. No? Evidently not. Nothing I do can beat Lava Dart. Nick, you have you have Flores next week, so that's gonna be we just swapped dance partners.
Yep.
And it's hilarious because our dance partners have exactly the same lineup. So like Mike is just gonna ban Terrageddon, and you're just gonna ban Goblins, and we're just gonna run it back. Except for this time, it's gonna be the Rock versus Elves. And
oh my god.
Although Mike Flores, of course,
what a classic.
4 engine. I mean, Natural Order is so good against a deck that doesn't contain Swords of Plowshares. What is Mike gonna do? Yep. He's gonna Engineered Plague naming Elf, and you're just gonna be like, okay, well, it roots into Natural Order for Verdant Force. It's like, what's your plan?
7. Yeah.
He has no removal for Verdant Force. He has to take 7 from Vendetta.
I've even played against Rock players who on MTGO one time, like, they didn't believe that Verdant Force was like 8 mana, and they spend 7 mana on Pernicious Deed.
Ooh, they're like, it's a 7/7.
Like, oh no, because they're like, oh my god, that's 8 mana. I'm like, yeah, it's 7/7. What are you
so
kidding?
Many.
Oh man, poor Mike. Well, he's I guess he's gonna juke and play Burn, and it'll just be like
have to figure it out.
Yeah, I have to figure it out with his just 3 Sulfuric Vortex between the 75. It's like your only choice.
You're giving me crap about the 4 dart, but I've got your 4 vortex, right? I've got
At what cost?
It still feels pretty good. Like, he's got to play Burn there. It still feels better than trying to play against Elves with.
He still needs to respect that Stifle Knot could be the draw. Like, the problem is the Rock just doesn't beat anything, right? So, like, you know, like. I'm like looking at the Stifle Knot deck, and I'm just like, okay, well, what if like the Rock isn't good against the card Psychotog?
Okay, everybody, 30-second take on what you think about Mike bringing the Rock. Nick, go.
What do you ask?
What do you think? What do you think about Mike bringing
Nick?
The Rock?
Everyone on this call almost brought the Rock, right?
Yeah. I love the Rock. Okay. I think the Rock's sweet. But I don't know if I'd bring it to PSS.
Can my 30 seconds just be the clip where Lan gives Mike shit about the fact that I had a limited budget and he had everything and he still chose a worse deck?
That was my favorite part of last episode. Yeah.
Oh boy. I think the Rock is atrocious. I think that he should have just played Blue-White Stifle Knot, and he would have had a lineup. He could have played Red-Green Oath, and he would have had a lineup. But instead, he picked the Rock. He knows all of these things. What do you think, Karen?
I think you have to have a Lightning Rod deck. I think you have to have a thing that a lot of people are scared of. And I think that you have to have 3 decks that create bad matchups for people.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because Red-Green Oath, like, is basically just like the Rock, but good. Mm-hmm. And, like, there's arguments. Like, I do think that Black-White Control, like, has problems. And don't get me wrong, like, Storm has problems, right? Like Storm, like, I have regrets.
Storm is a deck that beats itself.
Yeah. Well, like I hate playing like combo decks. Like just they like lure you in, like because you like play them and you're like, damn, like I just want to turn 3. Yeah, and you're just like, oh, this is sweet. This is awesome. You like win 9 out of 10. And you're just like, Jesus Christ, why don't more people play this deck? And then regression to the mean happens, and you're like, you start just like not putting the draws together, and you're like, where was that girl I had a crush on? Like, like she's not returning my text, like she's not interested in it. It's just like it's horrible. But I think like the black-white control, the Armageddon problem is definitely a problem. It's obviously less crazy in PSS, where you kind of have a little bit more control over your matchups, and it's good against red-green oath, which is a big deal.
Well, I also think with the Armageddon problem is definitely a problem. I think there's a difference between like Nick has 4 Armageddon and 2 Cataclysm, right? Like that's a problem, right? But I think, and obviously like Gat has 2 and lots of ways to find it. But it's not the same, I think, as having 6 of those effects post.
It's the same as 6.
It's okay. Fair enough.
2 and 12 cantrips is 4 bench.
So I think, what I've been trying to do in testing with it, just in general, is like, what if you just like if you just sandbag some of your lands, right? Like, how many lands do you actually have to play out as quickly as possible in the deck, right? So like Mike made a big deal when you put Armageddon and Gat about, well, this flips the burn matchup because Mike loves a hyperbolic statement as much as he dislikes the analogies that he uses. But if Armageddon's coming, you just stop at 3 lands, right? And you just try, as much as you possibly can, right? You can, at least play around it a little bit. Like when you don't see it coming, it can be a killer.
Well, burn is just super awkward, right? We talked about this with the red-green oath versus burn matchup, where we were just like, well, like sometimes burn only draws 4 lands. And then if you only draw 4 lands against your opponent's Sphere of Resistance and 2 Stone Rains, it's just like you can't do anything. But sometimes you draw 8 lands. And if you draw 8 lands and 2 Price of Progress, all of a sudden you're just like, well, you lose.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's true. I mean, you run into those situations. But again, I think on average, right, you can kind of play around with it a little bit. But no, I've been happy with black-white. Like, it feels, it's very 50-50, but better than the Rock. And
it's better than the Rock. It's better than Landstill. It's better than Blue-White Tide. It's better than, like, I don't know, every, like, it's doing the best impression of a control deck for the format as possible, considering that, like, the most powerful control cards is Oath of Druids. So, like,
I also think, like, again, this is sort of, I guess if you think about the PSS from the context of like an exhibition, I think that there is value. I was talking with Fran about this, of just like showcasing that like you can build a competitive deck in this format for like 50, for pocket change.
Yeah. That's good. I mean,
I think don't
get me wrong. It's very clearly like it's a better pick than the Rock, and 2 people have the Rock. So like, it's I'm not. What I'm saying about black-white control and its like weakness is not really about the context of PSS. Sure. It's mostly just like trying to talk about what Aaron was saying. It was like, if the paradigm is you want a deck that draws a ban, it's a little bit tricky for black-white control to draw a ban. And that's why I was saying that's the kind of issue with Storm, is like I was looking at the lineup and I was like, oh, Storm isn't going to draw a ban. Rock is never getting banned. But the rest of these lineups, there's like a lot of arguments for a lot of these decks to have a ban. I think Contamination might not get banned simply because like people don't truly get Contamination. So maybe that'll be ripe for, but it's also tricky because so many people brought the Rock, so they don't have to ban Contamination. Because the Rock beats Contamination. It's like we found the 55% matchup.
I actually think that having black-white in your lineup is kind of cool because you always have something that's live, right?
Yeah. But that's actually that's like the weird thing about the Rock. Is just like the Rock. The Rock kind of sits there. When Metelsky, like I thought Metelsky's lineup was last year of the Rock, Blue-White Landstill, and I think Goblins was his block.
But there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things that we know for sure the Rock just can't beat. Like, just the Rock can't beat an Angel.
Yeah, can't be replenished. I thought you were going to name a deck and you just name a card that's like in a lot of decks.
Replenish. Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't beat anything that just has a 4/5 flyer that gains you some life, right?
I mean, you have a hard time with Call Alert.
But black-white beats those decks.
Yeah.
Black-white is live and good against more decks.
It's good against decks with permanence and like good against decks with permanence and like not a like diversified
and permanence and cards in hand and cards in graveyards, and like it just does things. Like,
it kind of gets there. I mean, most decks don't lose to like one duress, right? Like I think Storm is like pretty good against black-white control. just because of the whole meditate thing. But generally speaking, like watching it play against elves, like the idea of how it plays against elves and goblins and decks like that is just kind of like, I think I talk about it in the cast. Just like I think Vindicate is just super good. It's just like you're starting with 4 cards that can act like a sideboard card when you need it to be, and can act like a passable, like it's a bad Swords to Plowshares and a bad Disenchant, but like it's on the same card, so it ends up being good. And then randomly being a Stone Rain if your opponent has Mountain is kind of meaningful. Like Black-White Control, like it is weird to like be like the rock sucks and Black-White Control rules, but like Black-White Control certainly has better cards than the rock. And then it's crazy because Black-White Control would be a better deck with Pernicious Deed too, because like it's not forced to play. Like the one of the big tensions with the rock is just like you play Pernicious Deed, you can't play low costed permanents, and like low costed permanents are a great way to play like a fair game against decks that care about the battlefield. So Black-White Control being a Wrath of God deck, being like just like mono removal and grinding, it does, like, I don't know, it does that better than Landstill does. Just because like Landstill's just fussing around with factor fictioning and trying to set it. I mean, whatever. Standstill's unplayable right now because of decks with 16 utility lands. So I think we're like what else? Oh, let's answer the questions. Nick, what do you think about Hunting Pack and Elves?
I think it's sick, and I just want to find time to just like get the reps. Like I messaged I believe his name is Grant Kingslayer on MTGO. I've been talking with him back and forth about Elves for a while now, and I was just like, dude, how do you like cast this card? He's like, I beat Sly. I'm like, how? Like, how do you? He's like, yeah, I keep hunting packing versus goblins. I'm like, how? Like, how do you do it? I'm like, record your games and send them to me, because I don't know what you're doing, but I'm doing it wrong. I think it's really cool. I just don't have a lot of reps with it.
Yeah. What do you think about Elves in the tier? Do you agree with me that Elves is no longer a tier 1 deck?
I agree. I don't know if there was ever a time where you could like hand Elves to like a random person and they would just like clean house with it, because like the deck's really hard.
No, you gotta know it.
Yeah, I love that analysis. Like that analysis is kind of silly, but like when you talk about like Blue-White Dreadnought or in some cases Burn, or just like all the stories of just like, oh, it's my first time playing this deck. It's like, oh, won the tournament. First time playing the deck. First time playing the tournament. Won the tournament. Got top 4.
Happens to goblins constantly.
Yeah.
Right.
Every time I hand somebody goblins, they just crush.
Yeah.
They just you turn 1 lackey,
It's is this a Keeper Mole, Mountain, Pile Driver, Lackey, Siege Gang? It's like, yeah, you should probably keep that. It's like, did they have the plow? No, they didn't. It's like, good tournament.
But I think as Premodern has evolved, like maybe 2 years ago, you could hand Elves to someone and they would be more likely to clean house. But today, no way. Like you have to know all the matchups, know all the decks, know what you're playing around.
That was my experience playing Elves. Like when I played Elves, I was just like, oh man, this is sweet. Oh my god, Michael J scrubbed out of the RC.
Oh no.
Did you scrub out of the RC, Mike?
No.
Oh, okay. You're still in it. Okay. What's your record?
1-1. I lost to Mono Red though, which is
well, you deserve that, right?
It's like literally my deck's best matchup, and I lost in 2. But I won the first round.
All right. Mike, you got Nick. You got Nick next round. Nick's probably going to ban goblins.
He learned his lesson against Chris?
No, he banned Chris's goblins, too. He's playing the same lineup. He's playing the same lineup twice.
I'm playing the same lineup.
Yeah,
I can barely hear you. I didn't mean to rip on Nick.
That's fine.
I'm just saying words. Should I put my headphones in?
I mean, I don't know. If you want to ask some questions, you can put your headphones in.
I don't actually want to ruin your podcast. I just saw a link in my personal Discord that your podcast was starting. So I was just like, oh, I'll just jump in.
It's our podcast. It's not yours. It's not yours today because you're blaspheming, but we're happy to see your face nonetheless.
We're okay. We're still alive.
It's a long day. You got time.
I mean, I'm playing well, I think.
Well, how well are you playing if you lost a match?
I've mulliganed 4 out of 5 games, and I have in one of my matches I won. So.
I'm proud of you for mulliganing. I do have to say that. That actually is a sign that you're playing well.
I probably played 50 leagues or something going into.
You know how much I hate it when you bring up leagues. Do you have anything to add about the format of Premodern, Mike?
Mengucci has like 8,000 retweets on his Parallax Replenish 4.0 start at 4 seasons. I saw that.
That's pretty sweet. I'm pretty hyped for that.
He's playing Replenish. I don't know. The only cards I know is he showed were Replenish and Opalescence. I assume that he's got other Replenish-based cards in his deck.
Yeah, I think he's playing he's just like playing stock, the quote-unquote stock Replenish. 4 of everything.
Who asked if I scrubbed out already? It's only round 2, Aaron.
It's me. I asked if you scrubbed out already.
He just immediately Aaron.
I would have guessed Aaron.
Somebody's trolling me. It's probably Aaron. It's good.
Like I actually, that was so funny on coverage. I was like, oh, somebody had the great comment of Michael J. J stands for judge, and then and then Mike's just like, oh, these fucking guys who play job. And Aaron's just like, yeah, some guy wrote that. Some dumbass wrote that trolling Mike. It's like, it was
then
me.
Then the judge assumed I wasn't going to show up, and she was just like, you want me to pick up your swag and bring it back? I'm like, yo, I'm here. Literally here.
Oh.
All right. Well, if you don't have anything else, I'm gonna keep asking our guests about their lives.
All right. I'm gonna put it on mute until my round goes, but I won't talk anymore.
Okay, I'll mute you as well. Yeah. Okay, you're muted, Mike.
So to kind of like just finish up my point about elves,
Hunting Pack, yeah, and 7 mana, because Hunting Pack to me is also the same question of biorhythm, but you know, I've lost to a biorhythm before, possibly on video.
Sure.
Yeah, I've won games against Alurin, who gets to 1 million life, and then you just buy over them, and they all of a sudden you go from 1 life to 17 life, and that's enough to like
you become a mere mortal. Yeah,
right. You know what I mean? And it's just like stuff like that. Like, so I think it's really cool, but I don't know if I want to try it out at some point. But in getting ready for PSS and stuff, I didn't really have the time to do it.
Yeah, so. I mean, you only have so much time to play Premodern. Do you does anybody think that they're just going to dominate somebody in the PSS? I don't think anybody thinks that, but
I had one more thing I wanted to highlight about elves not being tier 1. And just to highlight, because of what we just brought up with Mangu. Mangu played elves last time he was at a Premodern tournament. He got away to the finals, came in second. And then he picked up this Replenish deck and probably went, oh, wow, this is really good.
Yeah, this is what power feels like.
I'm like, wait, what am I doing playing this elf deck?
Well,
you know,
I don't have to be the best player in the room anymore. This is like,
right.
This is actually a weapon.
Right.
He beat Standstill in the top 8. Now he's playing against Black-White Control in the top 4. Black-White Control, notably quite a good matchup for Replenish, unless you get locked under Dust Bowl, which is kind of hilarious. Yeah. So that's pretty hype. Yeah, I mean, granted, like we don't have time to talk about the shortcomings of Replenish in this podcast, but a deck with 16 4-drops is gonna have some internal issues, but that'll be a topic for next week. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I have a hard time. Like, it's so hard for me to be like, Elves isn't tier 1 because it has so much pedigree. It has so much tournament pedigree. Like, obviously, there are people who like clearly demonstrate how powerful the deck is. And like when I play it, I still feel powerful. Like when I open up my opening hands, a lot of the times I do feel like I deserve to win. And that is what power feels like. But I have also, run into smaller things, minor inconsistencies, and just kind of noticed like there have been like it's just like I think Elves, like one of the problems with the deck is that there's like 1,000 mana sources in it. It's just like there are like a bunch of cards that all they do is produce mana. So if your opponent can kind of like surgically remove the things that do anything, like your opponent can Armageddon themselves and they can still pull out the win just because when you're reduced to just having 1/1s, like it's trouble. Like Meddling Mage naming Survival of the Fittest is like one of my favorite. Like granted, things have kind of changed. Now we got Call of Her, now we got Natural Order Plans, but like Meddling Mage naming Survival has always just been like a hilarious like trump, because it's just like, okay, well, I don't have survival and I can't attack. So now I'm on Deranged Tournament, Masticore, and the rest of my 1/1. So it's like if my opponent has nothing else, I have a shot, but it becomes an uphill battle.
And trust me, you'll draw those survivals when they name survival.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you how many times I like playing against a meddling mage deck, and I'm like, cool, no survival in my hand. Like, this is probably fine if they play it. Like, I got a Masticore, and then you're just like, survival.
Get you. Like, oh. And the sideboard cards against elves are super, super good. Like Engineered Plague against elves is just especially if it gets value on the way in is crazy, and then Curse Totem of course is accessible to everyone, and you have to start thinking about pivots, like the fact that you're forced to I think the innovation in elves has been super good, of just like instead of second order sideboard cards just being like, oh, I'm gonna beat I'm gonna beat the way that you beat me, like just being like, I'm just gonna change the way that I attack. So I've been enjoying that, but definitely a deck that feels like less of what it once was.
Agreed.
And I will to the JL's question in the Discord. It's I haven't ran my lineup, thought about my lineup against everybody else in the PSS, but I think this PSS nobody has Guy's Blessing Stasis. I think that I do think that
got him. Glad Michael J's still here for that.
Yeah. I do think that I will say that I do think that this Contamination deck will be a very interesting, because it actually behaves like a Stasis deck in many ways, but without card selection. I do think that it might be after watching it lose to, I don't know if we all thought that I think that McLean might have thought that it was going to be good against Hermit Feb, but I literally don't think I've ever seen a Feb deck lose to a black disruption deck, ever. Didn't see it happen in the Fall Brawl, didn't see it happen with Mike and Detau, didn't see it happen this week. Definitely one of those decks, but I'm excited to watch out. The Contamination deck is ridiculously hard to play, so there's something. Chris, before you go, wanted you to give a second to talk Magic Online to the folks at home. Everyone on this call, even Aaron technically rips it on Magic Online. Aaron, you should start ripping it on Magic Online.
Mm-hmm. I need 2 more.
But I got the plugs covered, premodernseries.org, et cetera, but I think I just wanted you to give a chance to talk about the community, talk about your history with it, and kind of where it's going and what you're excited about.
Yeah, so I'll just take a few minutes before I have to bounce. If it wasn't for Magic Online, I wouldn't be playing Premodern. It's just as simple as that. Ironically, I live halfway between the Worcester crew and the New York City crew, but I've got 2 kids and a job, and it is not easy to
sick job brags over here.
Thank you.
You just had to mention that you have a job. Come on,
I know. So between,
you're gonna pull me over lava dart. You're just like, I've got 4 lava darts and a job. What now, Lanny? How try to beat that?
That's right. I got the almost I got the picket fence, the whole suburban Connecticut thing going on over here, right? 2 kids, a dog.
My fence is looking pretty good. I bought a new fence for my house before I ran out of cash.
But no, so for me, right, the ability to just throw on my laptop after people are asleep and jam literally infinite games of Premodern at this point. When I first started, at the end of 2022 is when I kind of got involved playing. And back then the leagues might have been 30 people. And now we haven't hit fewer than 88 people in these leagues in months. Wow. So finding players is really easy and getting reps is really easy. And it's just a great way. I just think it's so cool that I get to play against some of the absolute, not just best, most competitive players, but just good people, right? Mm-hmm. Across the board without having a local scene. And I want to shout out Lanny for a second here, because one of the first people I contacted on Discord was you about the rock deck, because I saw your Lanny rock when that was a thing. And I was like,
back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. But
deck was never playable for the record.
But I didn't know you from a hole in the wall. I was like, oh, I hope he responds to my message, and you had all these good thoughts about it. And I was like, this is so cool that people are chill and want to talk about their decks. And
I respond to every message, by the way. Like I have nothing better to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I think there might be a misconception amongst paper players or webcam players that like there isn't the same kind of community that you're going to get because it's over. There's chat, but there's not like chatting the way that you might. But I built great relationships with people over MTGO, and I think
you just have to do it over text instead of voice.
You have to do it over text over face. But like, I definitely wouldn't be hanging out with like Pablo and Demi and Stan. We're in like multiple time zones, multiple countries. But these are the guys like I can count on to like bounce ideas off regularly, and I think that's one of the cool things that MTGO has enabled us to do. And so like I know you've got the plugs, premodernseries.org. And in the same way that you respond to all messages, like I'm on Twitter, I'm on Discord. Folks can always feel free to tag me, and I'm happy to help get people set up.
Iron Lungs and Chris DiBiase.
Yeah. So
my answer to you, I gave you a bunch of paragraphs, and then I also said Rager is kind of meh. I want a creature on 3. Rager is like the least bad.
And then you figure out called herd, right? But yeah, so thanks for giving me the opportunity. I was glad to chat with everybody today, and I can't wait to hear the rest of the cast.
Yeah, we'll do this on future weeks. The time of PSS is just like super hype. So
this is really cool. Like I'm super jazzed to be doing this. So
I'm so glad you could do it. When our first conversation about it, when I saw you posting, where do I get a webcam? I'm like, yes, he said
it's
yes.
It's time. And the mods do extremely great work. There's just so much Premodern happening. It's like not possible without, people like Chris. And then also obviously shout out Stan and Demi and Pablo and Bobo Fraggles and Lambda Man. Some people I only know by their screen names. But yeah, Chris, it was super great having you. And we'll keep on doing Clubhouse pod, so it'll be a good time. So
I look forward to our match. So take care.
Oh yeah, I got you next.
Yeah.
So Nick, similar. I need to know more. So this is what I know about Duress Crew. So like Duress Crew sounds like it's just like a bunch of like I have so many questions, but the coolest thing I think is that Duress Crew is basically like a dinner party with a bunch of Magic nerds, and their choice of game is Premodern somehow, like not Commander, it's not Commander,
right?
It's like drinks and hanging at houses. Everybody in Worcester has like, you guys can fit a bunch of people under the roof. So kind of just curious how it all started. Curious, like if the guys play other Magic, like if you guys did like the old school to Premodern thing, if it was just like because I don't know, like also just like what is Worcester, Mass? Like is it like a rural town? Is it like a suburb? Is it like, where the hell actually is it? Like how,
so Worcester is the second biggest city in Massachusetts.
All right.
About an hour west of Boston.
Okay, cool.
And so we started off as a Commander group, like back in like 2020 COVID time. We would meet up and play, mask up, and go play down at this dive bar we hang out at called Ralph Steiner. It's basically a wretched hive of scum and villainy. And we would go and play there. And a lot of us quickly realized like we all kind of knew each other from punk and hardcore shows back in the day. Like we used to all happen to be at the same shows and kind of just like knew each other and kind of found out that we play Magic. So we started playing Commander until Brad Stone mentioned the Terragon pilot at the time, a solution, and the Rock pilot. And Anthony Jordan, I know Aaron knows him at least, and Lanny, you played him at LobsterCon.
Played him at LobsterCon on camera, actually.
Yeah. And so they were like, yeah, we got decks for this Premodern thing. They had like the Rock, the old Jeskai solution, Sly, which I think at that time was like when Bobble was added to Sly and stuff like that.
God, who did that?
I don't know. Some guy. And
they were these red cards suck. How about I just draw fewer of them on average?
Yeah. And so like they did the best thing you can do to get people into Premodern. They just handed people decks that come play. Yep. And that's how I got into it. And then I just started getting extremely vocal about it and kind of doing the same thing. Like, get into it, guys. Like, LobsterCon sick. Like, play this, blah, blah, blah. Like, I went to LobsterCon 22. And that was like, I came out of that just being like, I inject this format into my veins, man.
Yeah.
So I just became the last
so in
person
22
in the room.
So in 22 there wasn't really Duress Crew, there wasn't playmats and caps. It was just Mayo and did anybody else go on 22?
Yeah, it was me, Brad Stone, Anthony Jordan, and Pat Sweet, who plays every now and then. Plays pretty casually. And anyway, so no, there was like, we call ourselves Duress Crew as early as 2021 because we're like, we need some sort of identity. We have like 15 of us, like we together. And so, but the mats and stuff started becoming official once I was like, it'd be cool, like make mats for us, like come play Premodern, make patches.
Yeah. Because I know by the time that I was playing Premodern that Duress Crew was a thing. Yeah.
And that was we really took off in like 2022 for sure.
So my opinion at the time of the leadership structure of the Duress Crew was that you guys, were more so a collective, but you've been named the leader of the Duress Crew in your PSS name card. So tell me about your organizing structure and hierarchy.
So it wasn't by choice, like Billy said it best. He was just like, yeah, whether you like it or not, like you're the guy, like you're the most vocal, you're the one that's out there talking
Spartacus.
to people, like you're the one. I came up with the logo. I'm the one that like kind of organizes everything. I'm kind of the cat herder. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, so now it's you. And I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah. So
crew dad.
That's how that's actually what I call the people in the crew who are like been around or have good ideas or volunteer their time. I call them dads. Like you're a Duress dad because you're like one of the 5 or 8 people who are like helping organize things, setting up raffles, designing things, helping me in general. Because I don't have the time to do everything, obviously.
Yeah. Right. Who cooks the best food in Duress Crew?
Pat Sweet.
Yeah.
By far.
No hesitation.
Literally no hesitation. It's insane. He's got this smoker now, man, and he smokes. Ooh. He literally smokes something every day. I swear to God.
All right. Let's see. Google Maps, Worcester.
Yeah, right. See how far it is. It's about 3 hours from you.
Okay, not bad. I have a car, so.
Ooh. That's fancy.
I might accidentally go to Worcester, Pennsylvania, though. So
right,
or or Worcester, New York.
Yeah, Worcester, New York. Yeah. So, but we got a bunch of people who are just like always cooking up food. Like it's crazy. Like, and now we're starting to finally like people will kind of like potlucks almost every week. People bring food. People bring cash. Whatever.
Oh, Hartford is like halfway in between. I feel like there's a bit of Connecticut.
This is what happened. I was like, oh man, Hartford won.
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna play a bunch of these New York guys I never get to play, and none of them came except for Roland.
Yeah.
No, it's because they're scared. It's fine.
That's what I.
We should be.
I was like,
honestly.
New York's scared. They didn't want to come up.
We don't really have we talk big game, but like, dude, nobody's like. No, nobody plays, man. I mean, we play. Like, obviously, we play and we like whatever. But like, we're too like, I don't know. I actually don't know how to describe it. I just like, because like I was like about to say it's like, well, we actually don't take the format as seriously as it sounds like we do, because we really only play a few times a month, and not everybody shows up to everything. And like, I mean, I guess like the big thing is like we're not as like. I talk Premodern technology more with like people that aren't New Yorkers. Like I talk more Premodern with like some people in the community than I talk with Mike. Like which is like the thing that I think most people wouldn't know. It's like I actually like, I love our crew and I love all the people in it, but like weirdly I kind of feel more connected with like the online community. I mean, we've got like the private Discord with like the people that I like to talk to most, but like, it is kind of strange that like, well, okay. So I guess I'll put it this way. Like I only play Premodern, and everyone else in New York generally plays other formats. So like Premodern just isn't their priority. It kind of seems am I correct in saying that most members of the Duress Crew just play Premodern?
It's like most people play Premodern, and yeah, I say most people main Premodern. We have some legacy people, and we have like a select few people who are just like, I don't like any of that. I just want to play Commander.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Because like so it's like that's kind of what distills down to it for me. Is just like I just play Premodern. I only care about Premodern, and a lot of the New York crew, like Premodern is second for them. And then like even for somebody like Michael J, like he's still just going to play RCQs and try to get on the RC and try to get back on the Pro Tour and do stuff like that. I kind of feel weirdly alone in that, and I'm sure Fran actually feels pretty like somewhat similar, but but he's got he's got some of the LA guys who are pretty.
I was gonna say the LA crew, like they've got a lot of players out there. They haven't organized really like other places have, but there's a lot of players there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like we have like you like Jay McGowan, right? I know you talked about him whereas the like Landstill guy, and he's at the RC too right now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool.
Because like
is he playing blue-white control?
No, he's playing blue-black control.
Oh, okay.
Which is like pretty much a mill your opponent out kind of deck. It's pretty funny, but yeah, that's what he's down there right now as well. So,
well, good luck to him. Yeah. I think kind of one of the things is that like the structure. Like New York is structured in such a way that like not very many people have houses that we can play at. Like David Tao is pretty much the only like house that we visit, and then we have to do kind of pay to sit at a lot of people's game stores spaces, just because obviously rent is crazy here. And then the bar thing is like bars here just aren't that large, so we do have a selection of bars that we can go to. Namely Endless Life Brewing, which Sonny is a part, an investor in. Mm-hmm. But like, that whole like the backyard barbecue and Magic thing is just like, it's really hard to make that happen. Like we could do it at my place. My place is like 40 minutes from anywhere. And it's like a mile walk to the closest subway train. Like Mike was over for a Memorial Day barbecue at my place, and he was like, well, a car home is like 20 minutes and public transit is an hour. So I'll take a car, but the car is like $30. So it's just kind of like, not a good time for somebody to just be like, Wednesday night Magic, So
and I've actually said that at some of our meetups. I was like, the only thing keeping New York scene like in check from like being like the hub of free ball, not that it isn't, right? It's up there. Like the only thing keeping you guys from having these huge crazy events is the fact that you're in New York.
Yeah,
because you just don't have the physical space.
Yeah. I mean, like even when we ran the 1.5K, it was just kind of like, again, I'm not gonna like the store rake is totally reasonable, but like the cap is 44, and like I feel like we should just be doing like that was the thing with the 68. Was it 68 people?
68.
Yeah, the 68 person. Like Swiss tournament, it's just like there's nowhere we could put that. We literally can't put that in any venue here, even if we wanted to. So, by all means, ship it over to Massachusetts. Like I think like I'm hyped. I just need the data, right? I just want to like shout out to Bryn. Honestly, he's a huge fan of Lanny decks, so he just brings it. He's like, first time playing this deck. What do you think about this? And I'm like, well, honestly, I haven't tried it. And he's like, I'll just scrub out. He's like top 8s, and I'm just like, nice. It's like my ideas work. I'm just like, but
Bryn is really good. He's really good. He's a trooper, man. Like, so Bryn's down with the crew and everything. And you know what? Like, so we have weeklies on Saturdays, and he drives up from deep Connecticut, like 2 hours to come play our weeklies. It's nuts.
Oh, that's sweet.
He's the man. Yeah, he's awesome. And he's a really good player too. He's really good at Magic, and the joke I have with him is he says every Premodern deck is terrible, and I'm like, well, like every time I'm like, can you name one that's good? And he'll say like some like goblins or something. But,
goblins. Yeah. I feel the same way. Like, I'm like crafting the next article in my head about just like, what makes deck good. But we kind of talked about it like at some point where it's just like goblins feels like it's complete, like our work here is done, and burn mostly feels the same way, and Stifle Not feels the same way, and Red Green Oath feels the same way. So it's just kind of like these are the decks that the work is mostly done. You can fuss around, you can cut the lava darts, you can leave them in, whatever, just it's still the same deck. So we're just fighting over the margins.
What's so cool about the format too is because Goblins is like complete. Like now the argument is like run Ancient Tomb or don't or something. Like maybe the closest thing you get.
Yeah.
It's like
people are still like the PSSers going all in on Wasteland here though really gets me, because I'm just kind of like most people who know their shit play port, but alas.
Right. So I'll argue that. I mean, even people who really know their shit, like
Aaron Dix,
like Aaron Dix, like Jared. Okay, so can I think of a lot of Goblin players better than Jared Doucette? No. And Jared's playing Wasteland, and I think that there are times where port shines, especially in the mirror, where port just is one of the best cards.
Mm-hmm.
But Wasteland just feels always live, like it's always good, whereas sometimes port can be awkward. So I don't know, it's a preference thing.
I am willing to see the concept of style here, that it really does come down to like the way that people like to like think about their strategy or operate their strategy, because the two cards are very different. Like Rishadan Port is like, it's like this kind of weird tool. It's a mana sink. It kind of like does this other thing. Like Wasteland is like, very like kind of like gotcha, like disruptive, like tempo, like kind of thing. And I think that there's definitely merits to both, and that it does come down to play style. I do think that Smits made top 8 of LobsterCon with goblins, so I might give him a little bit of shine on being
sure. No, there's great players all over.
Like, I don't know how Jared and Smits feel about money matches, but we can
Mike set that up. Mike Arnold's fantastic. Mike Arnold's doing the ancient tomb thing. I mean, there's great Goblins players all over the place.
I think the most interesting thing is to play a 3-2 split of Ancient Tombs and Ports, and like not play 4 Ports or 4 Wasteland in Goblins, and have Ancient Tomb over some of those lands. Because I've played a lot of Ancient Tomb, and I have had a lot of 1 red source draws, and I've won a lot of those games, so it almost doesn't matter. But yeah, like we said, the margins on Goblins are like
real slim.
Yeah, it's just like at some point it's just like, who cares? It's just like
exactly.
How much are you going to gain?
When we're all 56 of 60 of each other, who cares about the last few things? Yeah. Same with, we have a burn Discord where we are constantly going over the last 3 cards in burn. Like, what's your flex spot? Are you playing the main deck Lava Dart? Are you playing a mountain? Like, who cares? Who cares?
Right. And I think it's so cool about our format is that because these decks are like relatively soft, that actually turns people off from playing them. Like, I know people who only want to play decks where they can tune and they can like figure out the cards, and when the deck's almost finished, they're like, there's nothing to explore here.
Yeah,
right?
I don't bother playing Dreadnought almost ever. Like, because I'm just like, I just get enjoyment. Like, I think that's kind of like, I think we should talk about this a little bit with Present Company, because I think that the case for being competitive in the Premodern format, I don't think has been like really like explained that well, because like a lot of the discourse is around like people just being like, there's just so many distracting factors of just like, oh, like if there's more competition, then people will cheat, or like, if there's more competition, people are going to be dicks. And then like, there's also like, sorry to Hurst and Monster of the Week, but I kind of didn't really feel like Hurst laid out a good case for competition when he had his Monster of the Week episode, because unfortunately, we all tilt off and like whatever, but it's like even tilting is like okay, right? You obviously you don't want tilt to affect your game that much, but it's also just distracting. Like, the point is like, with me not merchant scrolling for Snap in the PSS, like that's just a mistake. Like, that's like the only thing about like, it tilts me because I didn't figure that out when I wasn't playing a match that mattered. And then when we talk about like competition and just being like playing, it's like yeah, sure, like I'm one of the most competitive Premodern players out there, but I'm not gonna, like, I just don't play that much Blue White Siphonite. I don't play that much these other decks. Like, I want to be as competitive as possible with decks that still have room to grow and still have unknowns about them. Like there's just like we know what there is to learn about goblins, and like there's not to say that somebody isn't going to show up and just crack it wide open. There's like, guys, we play 30 lands and like we splash 2 colors or something. Like maybe that's going to happen, but I think competition is just about like to me, and you guys can talk about what it means to you, but to me it's about like, it's kind of just about self-improvement. It's about solving puzzles. It's about like just like the gratification of having hypotheses, experimental notions, testing them out, and just like it's like the pursuit of knowledge. Like I learned, like one of the things is like I feel like I have like Magic has just become theoretically just so much more like clear and interesting, and like sideboarding, deck design, all these things. Like I've just like learned so much through the process of building and testing pre-modern decks, and so that's been kind of my thing. But what do you grinders think?
That's why I love elves, right? Like because the ceiling of actually playing the deck is so high, and it's just like, even if someone came out tomorrow and was like, oh, okay, hunting pack, or that's it, like that's elves, like I'd still play it because there's just so much room there. And so I feel the same way whether you're improving a deck or just playing a deck. Like that constant improvement, the constant challenging yourself, like that's what I love about the format.
I mean, elves is, if you were to describe a deck that plays like a roguelike dungeon crawler, like elves has got to be one of the most of that nature too.
Right, exactly. That's why I love it.
So I'll say, like, my favorite thing about deck crafting in Magic has always been figuring out the last 10 cards of an established like a brew. Somebody has a brew that's like right on the edge of competitive, and you figure out the last things to put it over the top. That's always been the best. But I think the idea of competitive pre-modern in general, because of the way that I came into pre-modern and the community that I experienced at the early stages of it, I think that my thoughts on a competitive scene there are always going to be like, I want to play against the best possible players. Like there are so many incredible players in pre-modern, and I happen to be in the call with 2 of them, so like that's pretty cool.
Shucks.
Genuinely, like the folks that I want to hang out with and spend time with and chat with, regardless of a Magic game going on or not. I dig the way your guys' brain works. I like the way you guys talk about Magic. I like the way and this is community wide. I like the talks that we get into, and I like the way that there are very few people in this format that I could not sit across a table from and have a drink with or without cards, and just like have a cool chat with. And the fact that we get to do that while having like this really high level competitive Magic where 40 possible decks can make a top 8 in a format and not surprise anybody, like 40 potentially viable decks at any one time. That's rad, man. There's so many cool things going on and so many things left to try in everything. So many decks that we haven't dug into and made the best version of yet.
Yeah, it's actually crazy because I do think that the problem of like the quote unquote solving pre-modern, like it's weirdly like has a lot of depth, and I struggle with the entire concept of solving pre-modern because I do think that like conceivably a supercomputer would be able to do it, right? Like a super ultra computer. But if we're just talking mere mortals, like I really wonder how long it would take. Like maybe it would take a long time, even if we did have 50Ks with 500 players. Like, because the thing is, like, even when Sam Black was on, he was just like, well, formats that haven't been played in the Pro Tour are not solved, right? So like the regional championship is happening. It has 1,200 players, but you know, the top prize is just like, you know, whatever, 20 grand or 25, 30 grand or something like that. Like, and it's like a bunch of players, there's a bunch of noise, and there's only a few a year, and there's only one per year in each format. Like contemporary Magic it gets solved, like, right? Modern gets solved, and then they refresh it with the thing. But you know, one of like part of the things it does feel like the way power works in pre-modern is that like power is so much more contextual. It feels like you're just like, oh well, Guy's Cradle is just like this super powerful card. It's like, well, it's actually only powerful in like sort of one context, but you can still like, it's still like in this deck we're the best Guy's Cradle deck, right? But then in the next deck, Guy's Cradle, we're not the best Guy's Cradle deck, but we're the best something else deck. And same thing goes with Gush and Survival of the Fittest and Oath of Druids. Like the way Oath of Druids like became this Terravore thing just became like super interesting. And don't get me wrong, like Oath into Terravore is very optimal feeling right now. And it's hard to imagine oathing into a different creature because of the texture of the format and just being like, well, if I have Ancestors Chosen and you have Terravore and while we're playing the Oath Mirror, like it's pretty embarrassing for me. But like, yeah, I'm just like thinking to myself, I'm just like, maybe pre-modern won't be solved. Like maybe like, or at least like maybe not for like the 10 years, like for the next 10 years. And like, you know, maybe the ban list will shift or maybe whatever, but like, it's just kind of like crazy to me that like the complexity of it, like it might just be a lightning in the bottle thing. It's just like literally just the way the cards are designed, the way the cards interact with each other. Like there isn't just this like, well, this color deck has to play this card because. Well,
and the metagame, the shifts in the metagame look like a freaking lava lamp in pre-modern. Like the way that like, okay, well now we're like, we years ago adjusted to elves and everybody had to run 4 lava darts all of a sudden. And then, it shifted and everybody had to adjust to parfait, and then removing parfait from the meta has like this ripple that's now thrown everything off, and deck construction for the past year has been just through the roof. Everybody's coming out with new tech, new weird shit that they're just putting on paper and like, oh hey, let's sleeve this up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Aaron, I think it was you. Someone had a funny comment on Facebook about like Sly players waking up and realizing land tax is banned. Like that's what I felt like. Like they woke up on Christmas Day or something because January and February it was just like mono red everywhere. Their goblins are Sly. Like I went to Eternal weekend, and when I played 21 matches of pre-modern, and I didn't play against Sly once, and I played against goblins twice. And nobody had it. And then all of a sudden, it was like the beginning of the year. They're like, "Oh wait, I can play this deck again."
Yeah, hold up.
And then everything shifts to, oh my god, every tournament that I go to right now is just loaded with red decks, and I have to beat the red decks.
Yeah.
Right. And then like, oh, now it's adjusting back where, oh, I can play an Oath deck. It just isn't this Oath deck. And now now it's back to combo because combo's beating these Oath decks and. It's this crazy, weird lava lamp, meta we're living in. It's sweet.
Yeah. Manguchi's in the finals, by the way. So
sick.
Called it.
Yeah. Wow. Surprise.
We'll have to see that complete.
Turns out he's pretty good at Magic.
Yeah. Go figure. Yeah. Well, this has been sweet, y'all. Yeah, well, we'll keep this up. It'll like PSS season is just super the best, and these matches are going to be great to talk about. So I'm super hyped for it. I don't know. Oh, I guess I had one more thing, Aaron. What do you? I wanted to see if you had any thoughts on sort of Sam Black's old school, and if you had sort of any. I know this maybe opens up a can of worms for you to talk for the next 30 minutes, but what do you think about? What did you think about what Sam Black had to say about old school?
In the episode that he did with you?
Yeah.
So we have a huge old school crowd here. Old school is what brought me back into Magic, and it's the reason that I'm playing pre-modern now. I love old school. I'm super excited to play some more old school. I wish that we had 3 days of LobsterCon so I could play the Duress Crew event and play some old school and do the main event for pre-modern as well. Like those are all things I want to do.
Yeah, we need like 2 pre-modern mains, 2 old school mains, X-Point, etc. But do you feel like the old school needs to get kind of broken open, and like do you feel like the meta is like severely lacking in creativity? Like, I mean, obviously this is painting a pretty stark picture, but
so I think there's a couple things that are. So old school is one of my favorite things to play with my friends. It will always be one of my favorite formats to sit down and play with the players that we have here in the Twin Cities, which is also a sweet place to play Premodern. It's a very fun format, but there are things that are holding back innovation in old school. The cost of innovation in old school. One of the things that we got a lot of shit here locally when we started allowing proxies. The old school crew was like, "Oh my God, how can you do that?" And we're like, "Wait!" Suddenly, people are brewing because they don't have to spend $5,000 to brew a new deck.
Yeah, it's right? Like your candelabra idea is never going to see the light of day. Like,
but now do I want to invest in candelabras?
Yeah.
Or Eurekas, or whatever the thing is that is going to be the sweet new brew that I want to do. So we were seeing super cool decks coming out constantly, and we were seeing, new players coming into the format, and that's another thing that old school struggles to get new people hooked in. Unless they're players like Sam Black, who found old school fairly late and had this crazy collection, right?
Yeah, so, but even Sam wants to, is just like, I'm not going to buy 4 Falling Stars,
Right, exactly.
Like, and Falling Stars not even that much. It's just kind of like, well, like it's just not worth it,
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, like I just had to buy, like I want to have some
Chaos Orbs,
old school decks set up for people to play, but I only have so many Chaos Orbs. Like, I guess I gotta buy more Chaos Orbs. Here's one card that costs $600.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It feels rough to try to, there are plenty of budget decks in old school that are super viable. When I travel, I tend to take a $20 or $100 deck with me to go to these tournaments.
Yeah.
And do fine. They're, I think that if you want to experience, what old school is, if you're going to an old school tournament, which doesn't always make the most sense to me because there's like 3 viable tier 1 decks, and it's like,
well, that we know of, right? Because
but it's like, are you playing the deck? Are you playing Workshop? Or are you playing Lion Dib Bolt? That's we know. I think. Sam is great, but honestly, I think that while there have not been, Tog is pretty good too. While we have not had a huge amount of success with brewing, like brewing is constant in old school. Like people brew for that format constantly, but you've got people that are brewing, something cute with the cards that they have.
Right.
Mano's constant comment about like sometimes you come up against somebody playing Fairy Tribal.
Yeah. I mean, I that's like what I'm interested in is the idea that these 3 decks can be like, the idea that there's a deck that's missing from the metagame, we could see a pre-modern thing happen, right? Where somebody like makes a deck, it's built around a different concept. It's like, when Parfait first hit pre-modern, or like when even Mono Blue Dreadnought first hit pre-modern, it's just kind of like, oh my God, like this is a sea change, right? It's just like, curious if like old school, if it's a Sam Black deck or if it's just somebody else, completely coming out of the woodwork. Because like the best thing about the Sam Black decks is that he just simply just doesn't like he's got the perfect mix of like not accepting the status quo and being able to challenge it well, right? Because there's so many people that are just like, oh, like, this deck's not the best deck, and then they're like, I got this, and then you're just like,
I have so many things to say about old school. I could talk about old school for
all right, we'll have
podcast.
to.
Let's
not. But let Mano take it to Mano's cast then, right? I mean,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, like we already have an old school podcast, so.
Right. No, in general, I think that yes, the format is solved. Yes, you can still have a ton of fun. Yes, an old school tournament is going to be won by the established thing. Typically, it's going to be one of a handful of guys who knows the format inside and out, that knows on your first turn what you're playing. But I have a deck. I just grabbed it. Like, this was, for a while, this was the deck to beat in our weekly tournaments that we used to hold. It was a brewing experiment, a thought experiment that I had when we came out with a new ban list to try to create less non-games, where you weren't playing Library and you weren't playing Mind Twist and you weren't, the Gentleman's Magic type vibe. I came out with that, and it won like 8 weeks in a row of our Tuesday night gauntlet. And then I'm like, well, this is the deck for this thing. Because I said there's always going to be the next worst offender for a ban list. Like, okay, you got rid of Mind Twist, but Hymn to Turok still exists. So I just filled a deck with the most broken cards in the formats, like Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Psy Blast, all the good 3-drops, Power, the restricted list, and and it's just busted. And then I took it to a Neos event the month that they decided to do our ban list for a Neos event, and my good buddy Duncan just absolutely browned me with mono green, 1-drops. It's like,
no way, that's so sick.
Yeah, just destroyed me. And you know what? That mono green list, it's the other deck that I have built right now. It's sweet. It's so good, and it's got great matchups against the core good decks, because you have more threats than they have removal, and you have answers to their problematic artifacts and this and that. It's just here's a bunch of 25-cent 1-drops that you just can't deal with your ultra powerful decks. And but I mean, even those decks, I think we found those now. I don't know what else we're gonna do. As cute as we try to get in old school, the card pool isn't big enough to come up with something novel that is actually good. If it's good, we found it.
Was there a pedigree to Sam's land tax deck though?
His land tax deck, isn't it basically the deck with land tax?
I don't actually know. I think that it's I mean, I don't know. I assume that Sam would just say it's different, but I don't have I don't have enough knowledge on the deck versus land tax. But also, I guess this because Sam's deck is also Eternal Central, whereas I don't know. Do you play Atlantic or?
Well, we used to play Eternal Central. We moved to our own ban list, and now I think that we're headed towards Atlantic, just because I think that Atlantic, strip mine creates some non-games. We really enjoyed having a lower strip mine count when we did our ban list, and we have a bunch of people who play, who really enjoy the Neos gameplay and the Neos crew. So,
okay.
I think that's the competitive scene right now for old school, is the Neos guys have it really figured out. So I think we're, as far as in the States, and I don't have a lot of dual lands that aren't revised, so I'm not gonna head to Sweden anytime soon.
Yeah. That's definitely a thing. I guess we'll leave this. It'll be an interesting topic, or we'll just let Mano cover it. After LobsterCon. I mean, I don't know yeah, I guess I don't know enough about old school to really dig into what makes.
I told you I'd bring a deck for you to LobsterCon.
I know, but it's just like the different and this is don't get me wrong. I wouldn't change this, right? Because we need to accommodate the larger cap. But the side event for Premodern being off-site is like the big reason why I didn't want to play old school, because if I played old school, all my friends would just be in a different building, and then that's what
bums me out is that we're in a different building now, because there's definitely people that are going to be in both buildings that I want to spend a lot of time with.
No, I feel exactly the same way. I know that they're exactly that they're just going to be like people playing old school that I want to hang out with. And it was just like in last year, again, they can't accommodate this, so it's like beside the point, but it was cool because it was just like, oh, well, Hoip and Flint are just downstairs. So you just go hit them up, you grab a lobster roll. Right. How's your tournament going? That's cool. They came back up. They were taking deck pictures in the upstairs. Or half the Premodern cleared out, so people just started playing, Annie or whatever.
Casual games, yeah.
So unfortunate that we won't have that, but growing pains. It's how it goes, and it's going to be great and under both roofs, and I'm sure it'll be great in all the Airbnbs. So
it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, I'm losing my mind. I have to put in the reservation for our giant Airbnb though, which I'm not looking forward to, because I need like 17 people to send me like $300 so that I can put this stupid deposit down.
How many people are doing this? Many people are doing this?
You picked out the spot, Aaron.
I found a spot with like a gajillion rooms.
It had 1,000 rooms, and I was like, "There's no way we're doing this." And then I started messaging people, and I was just like,
people are in.
I'll do it." And I was like, "Okay, I guess we're gonna do we're just gonna pack in like sardines and just freaking do this thing."
Yeah, we should talk about it offline.
Yeah, we should talk about it offline.
We've got more people that would jump in there if there's room.
Right now I think we have like maybe one spot, but I'm okay with crew dadding multiple Airbnbs. I like that communal atmosphere, so we can get a second one cooking, and it could help with like having one for people with disposable income that want their own rooms, and one for people who don't have a disposable income and will like sleep in bunk beds or on the floor to like make things work. So it'll be a good squad. What's the rest crew doing? Do you guys, if it's an hour outside Boston, do you just drive in?
No, we got an Airbnb as well.
Sweet.
Same deal, like 10 minutes away. But in our case, I was just like, I'm gonna get this Airbnb, and then it'll fill up.
Exactly. Right. That's like the way to do it. For me, it was just like
finally did for us last year. I just find we went back and forth so much. I'm like, here, I just booked it. First people to give me money have a room.
Yeah.
You get people who are like, well, how much is it? I can only do it if it's this. It's like, all right, just
on to the next one. Yeah, for me it was, I would have done that, but last year's Lanny could put $6,000 on his credit card. This year's Lanny is a little bit more sketch with that. But
we're trying to set up we're going to be setting up a stream on the side event. I'm not doing the streaming for the main event, but doing streaming for the side event. So it's good that we'll be in the Airbnb, because we have to get in there early to set everything up.
Yeah, that's hype.
Because old school has the same venue the day before and all that.
Yeah. It'll be God, I'm so freaking stoked.
I can't wait.
I can make it tomorrow, but so for PSS. I think we pretty much covered it. PSS Wednesday, 7 p.m. Cloud Go Ranger on Twitch. Nick, where can people find you?
You can find me at Duress Crew on Twitter, or just Nick at Duress Crew on Discord. We have a YouTube set up. We're starting to put some games out, so check that out. Maybe we'll
Duress Crew plays.
Streaming, who knows? Yes, Duress Crew plays. With nice quick videos of Premodern, so come check those out. That's it.
Hype. What about you, Aaron?
Check out Mill City Old School on Facebook, and we have a website, and we're a couple other places. There's Discord. Message me anytime to talk about Premodern or Old School. I can put you in touch with the right people to play whatever Magic you want to play.
Yeah, super hype. Love to hear it. Well, thank you guys so much for being on. Like I said, this we're definitely gonna make this a regular thing. PSS season is just super hype, so we can't just keep it to Mike and myself. As always, any feedback that you have for Spike Colony, any questions, you can drop them to me in Discord. You can go to Spike Colony Premodern on Facebook. You can find us in all the channels. You can request, make requests. I'm just like a sucker, man. If you ask me to do something, I'll probably consider it. So that's a hype. I'm not going to add lava dart to my deck though, so don't ask for that. Rooting for Mengucci to take one down in Premodern. He technically doesn't have a trophy, so we'll see if he takes that one home. Check out his latest video that was on Card Market's YouTube. As always, Fran keeps dropping videos. So much content. Any other content you guys want to shout out? There's so much,
shout out to all the different Premodern podcasts. I mean, the PSS, I've said again and again, is the best Premodern content, period. It's just incredible. The production value, the lineups that they get every time are so rad. I'm so excited to watch this season. But in general, we have so many awesome options. The Premod cast, I've got questions. All things considered, Spike Colony. I mean, you've got a million places to go for super, super sweet content. Yeah,
I gotta say, drop a sub on Cloud Goat Ranger if you love PS. Like, the amount of work that Hoyp has to put into this, juggling his real life, is crazy. And we're talking every week for imagine the wife points necessary to just be gone for 4 hours a night once a week for 8 weeks straight. It's just crazy. So show him some love in any way that you can. Drop a follow, drop a sub on twitch.tv/CloudGoatRanger. And obviously he puts together the Fall Brawl and Spring Fling. Watch out for the Spring Fling top 4 coming up. Premodern fucking rules. Love Spike Colony.
Love Spike Colony.
Love Spike Colony.